My name is Sean Rocky Geach, and I have over 100 properties that I do rental arbitrage with. I have over 6 years of experience, so it's kind of my area of expertise. And I will tell you right now that what I'm about to teach you flips what you think you know about real estate investing on its head. Your friends are going to freak out when you tell them that this could be a way that you guys can make some serious cash in real estate right now. And I'll tell you, the market is getting hot for this, and there's 2 factors I'll need to tell you about as to why the market is hot for rental arbitrage, which we will cover in this video. So strap in and let's go. Welcome back, Airbnb family and YouTube world. Let me first just break down the mechanics of rental arbitrage for you, so that way, as we get into the numbers, the data, looking at properties around the world that do this, you have just a clear understanding of what is going on here with these properties. So it's not your normal arbitrage by definition, but what we're doing in rental arbitrage is we're taking properties that are usually suited for long-term tenants, year-long tenants or longer, where somebody just moves in and sits. Instead, we're taking those properties, we are signing those long-term leases, year or longer leases, and then we're furnishing them. We're adding things that travelers will like. We're taking great photos, and then we market that property as a different type of product and for a different length of time, and we're charging a lot more money for it. And that is rental arbitrage by nature. Now, there's 2 paths that you can take in rental arbitrage. One is that pure tenant path where you sign the lease and flip it on your own, but you can also present yourself as a partner to landlords where you're representing them in an industry that they're not familiar with, and you just take a percentage of the revenue while it's still technically their house. It's still their business. You're just the professional operating in that space. And what's cool about both paths is it's very little cash to start, and in some cases you can even start investing in real estate or making money in real estate for free because you don't have to put any of your own money down. Maybe not even really any money down at all.
Sounds good to me.
Let's look at some properties and how this works. For the co-hosting side, for example, there's a property that I stayed in the mountains of Thailand. There's a big mountain on Koh Samui, and there's this gigantic villa that's there. Now, this is owned by a prominent family that doesn't use the property year-round, obviously, and so they decided to allow a professional to present this property to the world as a luxury accommodation that people can stay on their vacations in Thailand, 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, a week at a time for thousands of dollars. $800 to $1,300 a night they can charge for this luxury property, and you can live a lavish life, Instagram happy, doing your thing. Now, this property is co-hosted by a professional who's not the tenant and doesn't own the property. They just take a percentage of that revenue to represent that property. Now, you can do this with properties that the owner has no intention of using personally ever, which means the property's not going to start furnished. You're going to have to convince them to do that. This can be inner city or destination locations. For example, Broken Bow, Oklahoma, where people travel potentially all year round to go stay in log cabins nearby where they live. A lot of people from Texas, we drive up there for short little regional stays, and they made a ton of money during COVID because people were looking to get out of the density of the city into places like log cabins and hide out for a while. So those places made a ton of money. You can also co-host inner city with apartments, condos, houses, and it works. So you would convince a landlord to furnish the property and let you run it as the expert. It doesn't have to be a vacation property that somebody was going to stay in it 2 weeks to 3 weeks out of the year and then, short-term rent it the rest of it. You can do it all year long for investors. Now, that way typically tends to need you to be an expert or to know what you're doing in the space. So I recommend starting with a true blue arbitrage where you become a tenant and you learn your way through this. And it's still very, very cheap to get started because you're really just spending money on furniture and a security deposit and maybe your first month of rent. But if you learn from this YouTube channel, you can learn to get your first 2 months of rent for free and not pay a security deposit, and then of course you're getting your furniture in a thrifty way. For a few $3,000-$4,000, which is how much I spent on my first unit, you can get started too. And I've made $10 million on Airbnb from that $4,000 initial investment doing rental arbitrage. So looking at other, for example, I've got almost 50 properties here in Dallas, rental arbitrage, apartments and some houses. I'm in 4 cities that I do this in. In Philadelphia, I have more of a mix of townhomes and houses, where, places like Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth, I have a mix of more apartments and bigger buildings. So what I'll do is I'll go to a landlord and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, I want 6, 8, 10, 20 properties, or I want the whole building for example, which there are companies that do it like this. and you make an offer to that landlord to sign long-term leases for a significant chunk of their occupancy, possibly at a discount off of market rent, because you're providing them guaranteed rent on a bunch of units that they didn't have full, you're taking advantage of the fact that a landlord can't get full on their own, and they're all of their efforts with their leasing staff or real estate agents, they're just not filling up the building. So you become the fix, and it's a synergy play where they actually appreciate all of the money that you bring them. And now you're competitive in the market if you're spending a little bit less than market rent of rate, and you're furnishing it and flipping it by the night, by the week, doing business travelers and stuff like that too. Like you're just, of course, catering to all sorts of different people in the city, and this year round, depending on the market, can just make a consistent amount of money over the rent every single month. And that's essentially the business that I grew. In order to do this rental arbitrage play, I recommend that you start an LLC, start a business, try to make it a formal thing, and you're gonna present yourself professionally to landlords who have empty properties, empty apartments, and you're going to pitch them on the idea. Now, in order to learn how to do this, you are actually on the YouTube channel that has the best prospects for teaching you how to rental arbitrage. I've been doing it on YouTube in the public eye for over 3 years now, and I've made over 300 videos on how to Airbnb, how to short-term rent, how to list these things, how to make all the money. And I even teach people how to negotiate with landlords. So stick around on this YouTube channel, watch a bunch more videos, and if you want to schedule a call with my team, there is a link in the description down below where you can chat with us, because you may not be fresh new to real estate. You might have some money to put into real estate, you might have some property, and if you're looking for some direction, we can provide that for you as well. But if you're brand new to real estate investing, you have found a true gem of an opportunity, and let me tell you the 2 reasons why the market is going to be hot for a couple years to come, like I promised. Number 1 is what we're calling revenge travel. People have been cooped up because of COVID for a long time. Now, this is basically causing it where people are like, you know, I just need to get out. I deserve a vacation. I deserve to travel. So as soon as I'm able to, I'm going places. And there's been tons of travel to Mexico, for example. Everybody I know is like checking in Tulum or Halbosh or Isla Mujeres and just enjoying life somewhere warmer, because they're like, I'm sick of like hanging out all winter, like being told I can't leave my house because of COVID and being scared and having to go through this whole process. People want an escape. But people are also regionally traveling all across the United States for revenge travel. So people are traveling on average 100 to 500 miles for their destinations. So people in big cities are going to mountain destinations like Broken Bow in Oklahoma, which isn't a mountain destination, but that's somewhere near Dallas as an example. The people are just going rural a lot of the cases. But now we're also seeing a big uptick in travel to places like Houston and Dallas, where people are like, I have stuff that I needed to do in Dallas, or I wanted to do in Dallas. And Texas, where like the restrictions are lifted, and so my state is less friendly, so I want to go and do fun things. Now, as things start to open back up and become more loose, people are going to want to go check out their favorite city that they miss, or go visit friends in a city where they moved. And that revenge travel is going to increase the average volume of money exchanging hands in the travel economy for time to come. And in addition, COVID knocked a lot of people out of the game. So there's actually less people like being accommodated by hosts or hotels because COVID knocked them out of the game. The lack of competition isn't even the second one that I wanted to tell you. There's another one, but let me expand on this lack of competition. Hotels are gonna stay closed for a while in bigger cities like San Francisco or New York, where they shut down and stayed shut down. Opening a hotel back up costs money, costs time. And a lot of these hotels are getting government subsidies or monies because they were damaged by COVID-19, and it's just cheaper to stay closed and collect a check as a business than it is to spend all this money to reopen to risk not being full enough. So they're not going to open until like the coast is clear, which means that there's going to be a window of time where there's less hotels and less Airbnb hosts, where if you pop up and run your business in cities, you're going to have the pick of the litter for the guests, and you're going to be able to charge a little bit more than if your competition was around, because there's less supply. Right? That's going to be huge, and we're taking advantage of it right now, and it's great in Texas. I'm just going to be real. Right now, it's great in Texas because of that. Now, the second reason why the next couple years are going to be awesome for rental arbitrage is because COVID caused a shake up in the rental market. So like the market's going crazy in real estate right now, just in general. Like on the buying side, there's so many people coming in from California to Texas that home prices are just skyrocketing right now. People are buying single family homes. Work remote has driven people from the coasts to places like Texas where there's no state income tax. And of course, this is causing a deflation in the coastal markets and a spike in home prices in these central markets, right? And so there's basically this really cool, like odd scenario now where everything is just up and down so fast that a lot of landlords don't really know what to make of it. There are cities like Philadelphia where people are like having a hard time filling up their apartments. And so you can negotiate in cities like Philly, San Francisco, New York, like really low rent prices in apartment complexes because they're just not getting full because people aren't moving there or people are moving out. And by getting the rent lower because there's an oversupply of apartments, getting that rent lower means that you have more margin when you charge the same thing that hotels are charging. So if tourism comes back to San Francisco or New York, which are popular places for tourism, and people are still going to travel, then you get lower rent prices, but the same premium charge like your hotel, and there's more spread for you there. Now, in places like LA, where people are moving out like and abandoning their homes to buy ones here in like Dallas or Austin, you can convince those homeowners to Airbnb out their properties while they're gone, and you can then make those co-hosted properties. So a co-host can go gobble up a bunch of properties in the LA suburbs for homeowners that moved away, and they don't want to sell their house yet because the housing market is just not able to serve them the price that they want for their house, because if everybody's moving and everybody's selling their house, now's not the time to be a seller. So right now, economically, there are cities that are buyers markets and cities that are sellers markets, and somebody moving from a buyer's market to a seller's market probably doesn't want to sell their house for cheap and overpay for their next house. So you might be able to convince some landlords to ride out the wave for a few years and just put their home on the Airbnb market and make a little extra cash flow while they wait for the housing market to settle back down, and then they can sell their second house because they just bought one in Texas. So the inflation, deflation of home prices and rental prices create unique opportunities in some cities where rent is going to be super cheap, but tourism is coming back, and you can make a lot of money doing it like that. So you're gonna have a lot of questions. I absolutely expect that to be the case. This is just the beginning of what can be a very big, awesome journey for you. So put your questions in the comments. I will be here for you to help you answer them. Yes, this is real. I make millions of dollars a year on Airbnb with my 100 properties. And of course, you can go back. I'm not hiding any videos, right? You've got videos over the course of the last 3 years of me building this from 10 properties is when I made my first video. I once hit the 10 property mark, all the way up to when I broke the 100 property mark, like January of 2020. So you can see that growth. And of course, I welcome you to do your due diligence, read up on it, and of course, contact me. Even join my Facebook group where there's thousands, tens of thousands of hosts in it. And that Facebook group is called The Hosts of Airbnb Automated. And you can ask like, hey, is this rental arbitrage thing legit? And you'll have hundreds of people go, yeah, this is the real deal. As said before, my name's Sean. Pleasure to meet you through YouTube. It's going to be my honor to teach you rental arbitrage and how to change your future with real estate using other people's property. More videos to come. In the meantime, I'll see you on the other side.